get started. We're into the time allotted for digital music for experienced users. Okay, but we were all experienced from the last time, so we're gonna get started here. We have a limited number of Bill's handouts, but as we said in the last session, all of the handouts are available both as a CD from the home. She's got it. So does that include like all the handouts from the whole convention? Digital music handouts. Okay. So you can get a CD from the office here, $1 to cover their expense, or you can go online to www.squares, that's squarez.com/digitalmusic, and both my handout, which was the same one from the last session, and Bill's handout, which goes into much more detail on recording music, are available there. Plus some other links to other pages that talking about digital music and such like that. This is digital music for experienced users. So we're going to assume that you've started recording your music and you want to have more details. I'm going to say a couple of things and then I'm going to let Bill do this mostly. I'm going to talk about some things that you can do because he lost out last time. I'm going to talk about other things that you might consider doing to your music other than digitizing it and cleaning it up. Okay? You can, I think Bill will probably talk about equalization where you can, if I've had some older music where I've felt that it would sound better if I changed the ratio of bass to treble and things like that. So you can do that in this music as part of your cleanup. You can do pitch shifting, which I talked about in the last session, which I do a lot of because of wanting to adjust music for my voice as opposed to male baritone voices. And in the sound software that Bill is going to show, it's very easy to do that. All of this adds to the time it takes to transfer your music from vinyl to digital, but it's worth doing, and particularly for women callers or if you're a tenor in a baritone world or something like that, it makes it life much easier to be able to change the music to fit your vocal range. I use a lot of alternative music. That is music that was not created by square dance record producers. And you can use this software to do various things to the music to make it more suitable for square dancing. I commonly will change tempo to a certain extent. There's some music that I really like that was recorded at about 118 bits per minute. And I will just, before I change it to an MP3, I'll change the tempo to bring it up to an average square dance beats per minute setting. And then again on the fly I can change it to fit the situation, whether I want it at 124 or 132 depending on the age level of the people there and the conditions. You can take alternative music that may have parts of it that just don't work for square dancing, and you can actually go in and edit that. You saw the waveforms, or you will see the waveforms that Bill will show you when you're doing the recording. All of this, it's just like word processing where you can go in and cut, copy, and paste parts of the music. So if there is a vocal section in some music that you don't want in your patter music, you can go in and cut that out. Now it requires some practice to go in and find the right place to cut out that piece. But with enough time, and if you're willing to take the time to work at it, you can get transitions where you can't tell that there's been music that's been cut out. And I have done that. You can also, and this is a little trickier, go in and remove vocals. keep the music and remove the vocals. And this doesn't always work. And after Bill's done, if you want to see some examples, here's some examples. I can play them for you. Basically, it's a process. It only works if the vocal was recorded in this. If you have stereo recording and the vocal was recorded equally between the two channels, and then you can go in and do some magic manipulation and eliminate a lot of the vocal. So it's worth trying on some pieces of music. You can also take music and make, we talked about this in the last hour, take music and make a longer patter music out of it. If you don't want to try to set looping on, say, an MP3 or MP3 player or a CD, you can go in and copy and paste the middle portion of your patter records to make an extended play patter record. And that's really useful to do. And having said all that, all the things that you can do using the software that Bill's going to demonstrate, I'm going to turn it over to Bill to talk more about the process of changing your music from vinyl to digital.
Hello. All right. Through the process earlier, we're going to continue on, and we're going to get a little bit more in depth. I'm not going to do the process you talked about. For those who were here last time, the beginning of the waveform, do you remember that? What it kind of looked like? That's what we're going to deal with. Okay? This is what we just now stated. We're going to look at the pop and the hiss noise that's created from the vinyl record, which is recorded from the turntable into the computer. Come on. Ready? And today we're going to be still using Cool Edit 2000. We already understand, I think for most of us, I'm not sure how many are in here new, the advantages of the using of the software that is available to us today to be able to create the quality of the sound from the vinyl. Hearing music played through a laptop is no different than playing the vinyl record on the turntable if the music has not been cleaned up. I know a lot of people use MP3 players, mini disc, and so forth like that. If you record it from the turntable into a mini disc, it's the same as the record that you're recording from. Nothing has changed. You're just using a different storage device. Instead of having the record case, you have a little mini disc. That's the difference. Pops, hiss, all will still be there. Some of this is a little repeat of what we went through last time, because I was not expecting to have as many people. I was hoping to double some new people. Once again, we want to make sure that the Hilton series that we use to record music is going to be either 201, 205, or the 500. They're the best turntable series to record music. Once again, my preference is to still have a stereo. And there's ways to get through that. You can purchase a little thing, a box called Creative Labs, and it allows you on this one little box to have RCA for in and out. I believe there's an optical as well, and there's one more, but I'm not sure what it is. And once you use that and you plug it into the USB port of the computer, you now have a line in. You may have to do some settings. It's not a big deal. A disc comes with it. It's called Creative Labs. Yeah, okay, I understand there's one made by DAK, and that's a name of a company. Is that correct? And this is a separate box, USB or input. Okay, cool. Alrighty. Sound Blaster. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. So basically, it's an external sound card. Now, if your computer, I have an older Dell, I can't tell you how old, but definitely older than this one. It has a line in already there. I don't need to have any other device. I can go right from here, an eighth goes right into here, and I'm set to go. If you have that, that's great. But I think most of the newer computers don't have the line in. I believe what they say, if you use the mic input, you have an option where you can click mic or line in. And so far, I haven't seen hardly anyone who's ever really been able to make that work as a true line in. Can you guys come up? Oh, never mind. You got it. Go ahead. Make sure you state your name because we're taping this. So. Okay. We got it.
Hello. Dennis Farrar, Sun City, West Arizona. They do have a checkbox that you can decrease the booster of the mic, because if you increase the booster of the mic, you'll get distortion. But if you uncheck that, then you'll get a better sound out of it. It records it at a lower.
Okay. I've just always avoided the mic, so my knowledge of it is very limited. Okay. Okay. Once again, we're going to be using the Cool Edit software. This is going to be the example of the WAV file that we talked about earlier. Alrighty. Remember, once again, this is a neat little device I got, and I learned how to use it. And it's got a little pointer. You see that thing? Anyhow, this is the part that we're concerned about right here at the very beginning. Okay. Before we talked about how to save, and the minute you record the music into the computer, it creates the waveform. But at that moment, it's not saved, and the first thing you want to do is save it. Okay. And once you save it, in my example here, I happen to use the ORG, and that means that when I look at that file, that it's going to say it's the original. So it has all the pops, the hisses, the scratches, whatever the case may be. I know it's the original. I do that because if I don't like what I did, and I'm out of dance, and I listen, I go, gosh, I think I could have done a better job, then all I have to do is bring that back up again, and I start all over. I don't have to do the recording process. It's already there for me. And I do this with every song that I've ever recorded. And then once I complete the song, I'm going to, all of the process of cleaning up, I'm going to just save it and take off the ORG. So it'll just have the title of the song. And once again, the WAV file we talked about and saw is still identical to what is coming off of the record through the needle. And this is where we left off, I think, last session we were just talking about, okay? And we're at the very beginning of the music sample. There are the spikes and the thickness before the music actually starts. And the thickness you have to be careful with. If it gets real thick, you may have to take a little more time so that you don't get a hollow sound to the song, because you're actually gutting the music, because all of this noise is through here. This process here is all the music, and all of this beginning noise here is in here. Okay? The pops and the hiss actually are throughout the body of the music of the waveform. It says all in blue. On your papers and in the CD, it's going to have the word blue. It's green. Okay? When the music is playing, you may hear some of the hiss and possibly some of the pops. Okay, this is where we left off last time. I think the last time we got to was the vinyl record. You cannot take the pops and hiss out of the vinyl. But being digital, we can enhance that, take it out as if it was just freshly produced, which I think is neat. I call the beginning of this process the leader of the song. Every song I have has a leader. I don't cut it off. And this is what we're looking at here. The very beginning here is where the needle hits the record. And then it goes, and then here is a high pop. And the rest of this is like small little pops that you barely can hear, but it's all noise. And all of this part is through the basic process of the whole waveform. Okay? By using this technology, we're going to be able to restore this particular song as if we've just bought it. And once again, notice the highs and the mediums at the very beginning. This is what we're talking about here. All right? In the Cool Edit software, and I think also in Audacity, these functions that I'm going to be dealing with are available in the Audacity. They may have a slight different name. Maybe in Audacity it might say click pop, and that's it. In the 2000 it says click fix pop removal, and that's what it is. Okay, and this is what we're going to start doing. This is a sound clip of what the noise sounds like, but you're not going to be able to hear it because I turn all my sound off. Because every time it slides in, it goes whew. I can see you're happy about that. Okay? Right here in this particular picture is actually the process of the click pop removal beginning. It's going to save it, and then it's going to start going through. Notice in the background of this is strictly the waveform that we showed you early. It's got white back there. That means it's highlighted. So it's going to do the whole waveform. Alrighty? Does anybody have a problem seeing that? Everybody okay with that? Okay, great. Once again, this is the beginning process. There is another option after this that we're going to do. It's called noise reduction. Once the sample has been taken, it's going to take the noise or the hiss out of the entire waveform. Right now we're doing the click pop part. Okay, so can you remember what the other one looked like before? We have not taken the noise out yet. We've just simply taken out the clicks and the pop. We're looking at the leader here. And remember at the very, very beginning, you had that huge process where the needle hit and it was really thick. Then we had a high and a whole bunch, and then all of a sudden you just had this straight through, okay? This here, in all honesty, this is the beginning of the song here. I'd say right about here is the beginning of the song, and this is the end of the song. This is the tail end after the song's completed. In the Cool Edit, you can look at what the clicks and pops are. It takes the music away, and you simply are hearing that's it. Now, why would I want to do that? There's a reason. Because there are some instrumentations that sound like clicks. If you get a rhythm effect here, if all of a sudden these were not like this, but all of a sudden it was like a this and a this and a this and a this and a this, I would probably go back and listen to it. A good example is there's a patter record, Sticks. The first time I did Sticks, I didn't have no sticks because it thought it was a click. So it took the instrument out. So you have to be careful. When the process is going through, and I can't show it here because it's a still picture, once it starts to do the click pop, it starts to give you a count. And you can watch it. It's quick. And you'll see it might be 300. Okay? 300. Okay. The nice thing about any of the software, if you've never used this kind of software or any software, up at the toolbar is a thing that you can say undo. So no matter what you do, always remember, do the undo if you're not satisfied. Don't save it. Undo it, and then try something else. So this is actually the full waveform, and these are the pops that were in that particular song at the moment. So I viewed them to show them to you. Okay. Now we have the two side by side. All right? But now we have the waveform back. All right? So I wonder which one is the cleaned up as far as the clicks and pops and the one that isn't. Can you pick out the one that isn't? The bottom one. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. In Figure 6, the leader shows the complete process of the click pop. And the top one is Figure 6. And the bottom one now is the Figure 4, which is our original that we brought in. You can see the difference right at the very beginning of this beginning here. Alrighty? We're going to get into the noise reduction. Now, when you do a noise reduction, you want to take a sample. The only way you can take it, well, that's not true. There is a way to take a sample if you did not keep the very beginning, the leader as I call it. You would have to go into the wave itself and then kind of stretch it out until you can find a spot where you think is the noise. To me, I think that takes a lot of time. I'd rather pull it off the front. Or maybe I might get a better sample off the back. When I record my music, I let the song finish, and then I just let the needle go all the way right to the label. And then I stop it. When I get to the label, you'll probably see a nice big spike. And that's okay, because when I look at it, I know where I'm at. And sometimes I can get a better sample there, because I don't want to gut the music. I want to make it as pure as possible, so I don't get a warbly sound or whatever. Okay? So here we're going to be doing the process. The highlighted area is the sample that we're going to take. You don't want anything less than probably 2.5 seconds, okay, to get a good sample. Alrighty? Once you've highlighted that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use the process of the toolbar to look for the noise reduction. Now, of course, you have to use the zoom in order to get as much as you can so you can visually see it. And you can zoom as far as you want. Here now we're at the noise reduction process. Okay, and this picture here is the minute that you click on the toolbar, it says noise reduction. This is going to appear. And let's just go by here. In this option, the upper right-hand corner, there's a thing that says load profile, and then right below it, it says save profile, and then get profile from the selection. Now what the top one does is if you, for example, had a brand new vinyl record, okay, and suppose that you had 15, which is I think an average that everybody buys every month, okay, and they're all brand new. 9 times out of 10, they'll be pretty daggone close. So what you could do to save time is to take the sample, and then you want to save it. You'll have an option once you take it to save it. And once you save it, you give it a name. Say new vinyl or something like that. Then the next one you record, instead of taking the sample again, all you have to do is go to load the profile, and it'll remember that that's the new vinyl. And then all you click on that, and all of a sudden the whole waveform becomes highlighted, and you want to say OK, and it will do the same process. Now, if you are dealing with records that were 20 years old, 25 years old, and you're back and forth, you may not want to do that, because what one looks like from the next, all the different labels that we have record a little differently as far as their process. So you might want to be just careful with that. You might want to just take the time and get a sample. And that's what we're going to do here, is we're manually going to take our own sample. Okay? Here's what it looks like. Remember we had the white part? Okay? We highlighted the white part as our sample. We went up there and we said, get profile from the selection. It took that white area and it viewed it, and it says, if in the upper box here, it has a yellow and it has the green. And the yellow is what you're concerned about. That's what you want to do. You can change that by this option here where it says noise reduction level. If you do the process and you feel that you've lost something, you can, maybe it's taken too much out. You can now alter that by saying undo, we're back to where we started from. The undo is a great function. And you can now slide this bar downwards. Yellow here is being 50%, and here, 60, 70, 80, and below. And you can then do it that way. And what you'll see is this will change. Maybe it might arc a little bit more. Maybe it'll go down a little bit more. So you have a little bit of leeway there. At this point in time, once this has done this process here, you do not say okay. Okay. The reason being is because once you say okay, it will only clean up the highlighted area. We don't want to clean the highlighted area. We want to clean the whole wave file, don't we? Okay. So the next step would be to somewhere on this wave file, I hope I have a picture of it, okay? I've zoomed out to the normal wave file so the wave file fits in the screen. But notice at the very beginning, the white is still there. That's the first process I did. I highlighted it. I've got the selection now, but I don't want to say okay because it's only going to clean this area. So somewhere over here I want to click so that I don't have anything white anymore. All right? Once I do that process, which is now the picture at the bottom, I went ahead and this area right here is the line. I just happened to just put my cursor and click so I have no white area. Now we're getting ready to roll with the noise reduction process, and here it is. Now, automatically I went and say, to bring it up and say okay. When I say okay, it highlights the whole waveform because that's the noise that we want to take out. And now it's going to go ahead and do that process. When the noise reduction is selected again, it will highlight the entire waveform, which is shown, and I brought the box back up so you can kind of see, what we did with the program software. Let's see, the noise reduction has been selected, waveform is behind the menu, and we are now ready to roll with taking this noise out. Okay. Here it's doing its whole process. This is going to be the result. I don't know if you can see right now, but look at the very beginning here, how thin this happens to be. Alrighty? You're going to be looking at the front of the waveform. Look at the leader, which we've been focusing on since the beginning of this process. There it is. Okay? Can you remember what it was before? Probably not, but I think you have an idea. And so at the beginning here is where the needle somewhere went down, probably right there, and the rest is here. And this, remember how it was kind of all kind of squiggly, kind of like it's all gone. Which means that whatever was in this entire waveform has now been taken out. And the music has not been changed. It hasn't been distorted or anything like that. It's just like a brand new vinyl record. Okay? And if I was good here, I think I put both of them up there. Hey, all right, cool. So at the very top picture shows the noise that we had from our original. Now remember, before this process, we did the click pop. Okay? And now we have done the click pop and the noise reduction. And look at that line. It's a picture of beauty. Alrighty? So now we are going to have a very, very cleaned song. And the bar far left is where the needle comes in and so forth like that, which we explain. And in other words, as the needle drops down onto the vinyl record, the area after the spikes to where the actual music begins is perfectly flat. And that's what we're looking for. Okay? So noise is gone. What I do personally, a number of years ago when I did this session, I think Bill Hyman was in, and I showed this process as well. I call it, it's a 2-second delay. And I put that on the front and the back of my WAV files. It does two things for me. It gives me time to select the song, however my player, whatever I'm using, and in the player that I use, I hit a space bar to play the music. So the minute I hit that, my music will not begin until 2 seconds. And bam. So it gives me time to lift my head up, look out at the crowd, how y'all doing? Music starts, especially on singing calls. I've seen some where they're right clipped off at the very beginning. So when they start the singing call, you better be ready to say circle left. I mean, just that quick. It's something, it's totally up to you what you would desire. I know Bill at the time when he was releasing MP3s did not do that process. And then all of a sudden said, hey, this is cool. And I'm not sure if he started to insert that or not. I don't know if Tom does that now or not. Anybody that buys MP3s would find that out. Very simple process, and it's called silence. So when I go ahead and I insert the silence, I have pure silence. I already have it because it's cleaned up, but I mean, now I really have it. And so it's just a thing that I like to do personally, and I do all of my songs that way. I also was told that if I ever wanted to transfer my MP3s back to my mini disc, that I think the Sony recognized up to 2 seconds. Anything beyond a 2 second, like 2.1 or something like that, it would think that it's another track, so it would create another track. And so by having the 2 seconds, if I ever wanted to transfer it back, I knew I was okay and I could do it and not have a multitude of blank tracks. Will I probably ever do that? No. Okay. So we finished that process. Once again here, I just show you how I put the 2 seconds on there. Alrighty? All right, there's the 2 second process. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my cursor at this point here, and I'm just going to click it and drag it to the far left and delete everything there. And this area here is pure silence. Okay? This line you guys are probably staring at, I'm not sure why that's there. It's nothing to do with the waveform. It was something with the software that I don't know if I put my cursor wrong or not. As you see, it's not there anymore. And that's exactly what I did. Okay? I do that on the front side and I do it on the back side. 2 seconds, silence, and I'm clean up and ready to go. The next step that I do is called amplification. Alrighty? I normally like to record my music into around the 2000, and it's called SMPL on this particular software. How many dBs that is, I don't know. I cannot tell you what the SMLP, MPL, whatever it is, actually means. It's I really can't do that. I don't know. But when I look at mine, it has a range, and I think maybe you might see that range if it's there. Yes. Okay. And it's this area right here. Okay. I usually try to get it within the 2000 mark. So this would be 2000 here, and this would be 2000 here. And that's what I like to try to record within. You can record higher if you want, but I would probably suggest you not. Once you have recorded the music in, no matter how high the peaks are of the wave, when you amplify, I believe that it really, all it does is just add more power. It doesn't distort the song. If the song was distorted to begin with, it's distorted no matter what you do. If it's not, then I believe that amplifying it is not going to make it any better. Or worse, rather. Okay? Now, I could be standing to be corrected.
Can I make a comment here?
Yes. Yes, you are.
A lot of us who used to record to tape, we're used to trying to get our amplitude up as high as we can. You want to really maximize, saturate the tape with the sound that you were getting. And so you'd fiddle with adjusting your input levels to get that as high as you could without going too high. Recording digitally, you have a little more leeway on that. You definitely don't want to record too high because you'll get clipping. And that's what he's trying to avoid by keeping that within the 2000 mark there. Recording lower is less of an issue because you can do exactly what he's saying, which is to amplify the music. And my understanding of that is that the software goes through, finds the highest peak in the music, raises that peak up to just below clipping level, and then amplifies everything else in proportion to how much it raised that peak. So you're increasing the sound of the whole piece of music based on what the highest peak was and making sure that that peak doesn't clip. And it's all automated, and it works very nicely.
Yes. Okay. So we'll just breeze right through this process here because that was, you took care of it. Okay. Let's see. In this particular process here, we've already cleaned the pops and clicks, inserted the silence, and now we're going to amplify the waveform. Okay. And this is what it all looks like once we've completed those processes. To convert to an MP3, this will be our last step. Okay. Once the music is cleaned up and you're ready to roll, you convert it to an MP3. Basically, the MP3 file is a smaller version of the music WAV file, or the WAV file is compressed to save space. That's all it really happens to be. That's all it does. Okay. For example, if a WAV file is about 20 megs, which would be about 4 minutes of mono music, it's about pretty close. When you convert it to an MP3, the size would be approximately about 4 meg. So we're just reducing things to make more space. That's all. Okay. Any questions? Elmer, you're going to have to speak into the microphone if you don't mind. And can you give your name, please? And where you're from?
I'm Elmer Sheffield from Florida. I had just a question a while ago when you were going through the noise reduction. Is the noise that you're doing away with, are you telling us it came on the record, or are you telling us that that's noise that has accumulated from use? And I'm not speaking of the pop and the hiss of setting the needle down, but I mean, you said you run it all the way through because the noise goes all the way through. Are you telling me the noise is there when we make the record, or are you telling me that noise has been put there from use?
Yeah, the noise comes from the needle. The needle is what is picking up. Now, a pristine, new pressed record is going to be pretty close to being a flat line. The major thing you may see on the leader is the process of the needle being put down onto the record. So you might see a spike. And the rest of it is going to be just as smooth can be. So there, obviously, at that point in time, when the music begins, the beginning of what you're looking at with your eyes, it's not through the rest of the music. There's nothing there. But if I take a record, like when we talked about this one here, you saw a little bit of thickness on that smooth line. And that thickness is of wear and tear or usage. And it's whatever's there is being picked up through the needle. I don't care what it is. And it's going to go through the needle, through the process of the turntable, and right back into the computer through the software. It's a perfect copy of what this record is producing. So by taking that out, when that happens, it goes all the way through. It doesn't, in other words, it doesn't start here and then the music begins and it disappears. It's still there. You can hear it at the very beginning because there's no music. Once the music begins, it's less. Okay. Did I answer that? Okay.
Tom Dillner from Kentucky. I'll add a little bit to that for Elmer. Even in a version record right off the press, you're going to see about half of what Bill showed you on that graph. You have to keep in mind when a record is made, it's cutting a piece of plastic and it's putting, for lack of a better term, squigglies, 2 of them. One on the left, right. It's in a 45-degree V. And that needle is riding down the middle of that, picking up vibrations from both sides. Okay? And as it picks up that vibrations, that's transformed to that graph to see that. Some of it is perfect sound. Some of it is noise from the needle itself riding down the middle of the groove. And what Bill's trying to emphasize in the fact is the music covers that up once the song starts, but it's still all the way through there. And if you want to clean any of that up, the best thing to do is grab it before the song starts because you know it's there. And then clean it all the way through.
Bill?
Bill Eiler from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Chris is a good friend. She just lives a couple blocks away, and we're kind of like brother and sister. But I'm lazy. I use Cool Edit, but I'm a lazy person. I have, as many of you do, thousands of records that I had to transfer over. And after I started doing this, I found it was taking an enormous amount of time, more than I wanted as I'm sitting there in a day, to do that. So I got lazy, and I did those things you did, but I only used the first 10 seconds of the beginning and the end to do any sampling for almost all my records. I know that some of the records I have pops and clicks in the middle. I'll take care of those. But I found that in my own lazy way, since I wanted to get all this done, I just sample the first 10 and the last 10 seconds that people hear. Everything else, dancers are dancing and is hardly ever heard. So if you've got time constraints, there are some shortcuts you can use if you're not a purist
Yes,
with the whole music.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm anal about this. I'm just amazed that we have this technology. And for me, and believe me, I can hear it, and I don't have the best of ears. But if I happen to hear it, and I know somebody has recorded a record to make it digital, I am just amazed they haven't taken the time to get rid of that. That would bug me to no end because I have it at my fingertips. And you're right, it is time consuming. And but the cleanup process, once you learn it, really is not the time. The time is going to be getting them in. That's the time. You set the record, and it takes you, approximately 4 minutes to record it in. So I just personally happen to take a couple hours, and I say, okay, I'll just record it as many as I can. I might get 45 songs in, maybe 40. And then at another time, I might say, well, let's sit down and just start cleaning them up. Because after I've done it for so long, the cleanup process is just like 1, 2, 3, bam, and I'm done. So, but the time consuming is getting them recorded in.
Right. I think it's clear that there's a spectrum of how much time you want to spend. I know somebody else who is so anal that he goes through and analyzes the waveform all the way through the whole record, looking for variations, and then manually removes each one and does a whole process. He's gotten very fast at it, but he'll take 2 to 3 hours per song to do it.
Oh, I thought I was bad. Yeah.
Everybody has their own way of doing things
Yeah.
and what they can hear. I have some here, Steve.
Steve Cooper, Greeley, Colorado. One of the things that increases the amount of hiss that you have on your record is how worn your needle is. And a lot of people are, especially, I've met some square dancers who are really bad at this. They'll keep a needle on there until the whole thing wears out or breaks before they'll change their needle. And if you're trying to use that old needle to try to record, you're going to get an incredible amount of hiss.
Yeah, that's why I really suggest, you do what you want to do. You do what you want to put into it. If you want to put $5 into this process, you're going to get $5 out of it. Okay? That's why I suggest using a stereo. I have a stereo at home. It's just a regular old stereo. Came with a tape deck and all that. I got it for a gift. I can't remember which was Christmas or something like that. And I just took the turntable part, and I have the Creative Labs box. Now the box cost me about $25, and I just place that and plug it in, and I'm ready. And the difference between using that turntable, and it's not a real expensive, high-quality turntable, I was amazed at the difference between using this here. And so now I just have it at my desktop, and when I'm just doing work, I just go ahead and plop a record on and let it go. And then when it's done, I stop it and go and do my rest of my stuff and put the next record on. So actually, I'm recording while I'm doing work on my computer. You need to turn all your sounds off, though, if you do that. I thought I might make that mention, because if you actually are recording while you're doing, word processing and all that, if you hit something that goes ding, ding, if you decided not to go back and listen to what you just recorded, it will be there, and you'll be able to dance, and you'll hear this ding, ding. So just that was a learning process for me, okay, because I always use my laptop.
I agree with that. I also started recording off of my Hilton 201 and then switched to use my stereo system. And the difference was, even to my bad ears, really incredibly noticeable.
Yeah, what it does, the turntable, the needle is going to pick up your high, and you're going to pick up your low. When you come off of a stereo turntable, it still picks up the high, and it's still going to pick up the low. That's a given. But all of a sudden, it picks up the ambience in between. So all the instruments that are in the background and so forth, all of a sudden start to come to the forefront. A much better way to do it, because it's the quality of needle that you're dealing with, okay, as well.
Well, Hiltons were designed to, as I understand it, to really emphasize mid-range voice range and not to play high-fidelity music. And so that's great for what we use it for. But when you're trying to make the best recording that you can off of your vinyl, it's really great to use a stereo turntable. I have one here.
Scott Pierce from California. Once you've gone through this process and you've saved your file as an MP3, if you decide then that you want to go back and make some changes or do some editing to that, is there an easy way to expand that file back to a WAV to work on it, or do you go back and start over?
Okay, so I believe you're saying I have the MP3. I'm using it at the dance. I'm not quite happy with what I did with it. So do I go back and bring the MP3 file into my software? I would say probably not if you're going to re-edit it. I would go back to the ORG, which you save, okay? And it has all that crud at the beginning, and work right over again and redo that one, okay? The best thing that I do, or not the best thing, but one of the major things I do with an MP3 is for example, if I got an MP3 from Palomino, I can tell you at the very well, unless he's changed, but I'd probably say at the beginning there's not a 2-second delay, and there's not one at the end. So the first thing I'm going to do is pop that into my Cool Edit as an MP3 file, and I'm going to add 2 seconds of silence to the front and 2 seconds to the back, because that's what I like to do. And then I'm done. If I want to amplify or decrease the amplification, I may choose to do it right then and there. But as far as cleaning up noise and all that, not with the MP3. You must go with the original WAV file.
In fact, most sound editing software won't work on MP3s except to do some very rudimentary editing, like adding and subtracting stuff. Most of them require that they will automatically take the MP3 and change it back into a WAV file. And then you will when you change it back to an MP3, you're doing a recompression on the decompressed MP3. So,
Tom Dillender, Bill and I differ just a little bit on this one. I work with a lot of MP3s after they're cleaned up and finished and what have you, and if I want to go back, I do use Music Match, which is a free download that will convert the MP3 back to WAV. I don't go back to my original source. I've worked on that thing long enough. I was happy with it, I thought. Maybe I missed something little. So if I finish with my MP3 and then find out something's wrong, I will convert back to a WAV, fix what I want, change it right back to MP3 again using Music Match and go on. Some people claim there's a little degradation in there. There is so minimal, I don't care. But that's a preference.
Where
sorry. Go ahead. My preference would be I save the original like you do. I also save as a WAV file the cleaned up thing that I've done. I save that as a WAV file, and then I convert it to an MP3. The MP3 goes on the laptop that I take to dances. The WAV file I save and I make a backup of, so that if I ever have to go back or do what you're talking about and hear something that I want to fix, I go back to my cleaned up WAV and start from there.
Dennis Farrar from Arizona. Tom touched on this, using the Music Match as a free download to convert it to MP3. Does Audacity have that capability of converting to MP3?
Yes, on the Audacity, if you happen to save, if you title the song and you save it, it'll come up with an AUD, which is their extension. But they have in the same column, save as. And it could be a WAV or save as MP3, and so you have that capability, yes.
Yeah, actually, Audacity makes you do one additional step. You have to go download an MP3 encoder,
the lame encoder, one time, because MP3 is a patented algorithm for compressing music, and it is commercially patented. So any software product that includes an MP3 encoder has to pay a licensing fee. And to offer this free Audacity, they don't want to pay that licensing fee, so they require that the user find the MP3, download the MP3 encoder. Anything else? Yes.
Mike Kelly from Kansas City. Say you got a record with a skip in it. How can you fix that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I don't have an example in here, but I believe the last time I did, that was exactly what I touched on. I had put a record on in the dining room, and I went to do something, and I figured, well, 3.5 minutes is done. The record should be complete. And I went back, it's still playing. And it was stuck in the middle. And I was like, oh, cool. But I didn't want to lose the record. I liked it, so I was able to kind of, sweet talk a little bit, and they got over the hump. And this was before they had the click pop. I manually took them out, which that was time consuming. In this process, I was able to find it. It was pretty obvious. And I took it out, and it was just like I never had that skip in there. Now, with the click pop, it's amazing how much it really takes out. It's really cool. When you look at it, you see the number, and it finds 200. I would be there forever. And probably some of them I wouldn't see. I might hear it, but I may not be able to find it. Obviously, the bigger ones is cool. You can find those. But with the addition of the click pop software, it takes out an awful lot. But if I had one that was really standing out, yeah, you can find it very easily and take it out. Yes.
Trevor Dave from Manchester, England. One of the other problems I had on one record is that it actually got damaged in the middle of the third figure. So what I was able to do was to cut one of the earlier figures out, substitute it for the damaged one that is on there, so I then got a full record all the way through. And I also do that for hexagons as well, when I really want 6 figures instead of 4 on there, that I cut and paste the extra section in on there. I'm not quite sure how I stand legally doing that, but that's subject to something else.
Well, Tom, perhaps you might talk about a little bit briefly about the legality of modifying, taking even a commercial record, an alternative music record, and modifying it in some way and not reproducing it for sale, but just using it for one's own performances.
Fortunately, with the laws that are set in place and the licenses that we have today, once you buy that piece of music, you can modify it to your heart's content. And you can use it at your dances. The only thing you cannot do is make a copy of it and give it to your buddy. Okay? The other thing you must do is retain your original copy. Don't throw it away. Don't give it away. Don't sell it. You must maintain that original copy. But as far as modification, if you want to make it 6 times through and spend the time to do that, and when Trevor said that, he didn't mean it was click, click, and he was done. There's some time.
You can, if you're quick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yes, you can modify it any way you want to. I just recently had a piece of music sent to me by a producer, and we were mastering it, and there was a one single pop in there, like Bill's had sometimes, and it showed up on the machine. I mean, it just lit the machine up. And I called the producer, and he played it and couldn't hear it. And he said, well, I'll send you another copy. And he did, and it was worse. I mean, it was just literally lighting the machine up. And I went directly into Cool Edit. I stretched it. This great big spike. I stretched it again. I went in there, took that little section out, shoved it back together. Perfect piece of music. So that didn't take too long, the big spikes. But when you start cutting and pasting, you got to do a little more work. But as far as modifications, knock yourselves out.
Okay, in terms of the cutting and pasting, there's some techniques, and perhaps someday when we do an even more advanced digital music session where we can show the actual going in and finding the zero crossing where there's silence in the music waveform and exactly cutting, beat matching, and getting the part that you want and duplicating that. So there are techniques, and you can learn them. It's mostly practice to hear that and do that. Other questions? The question was, could Bill...
I understand. You mean the song? Yeah, I have it, but I don't have a hookup here. Do you? Yep. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it as well. The thing about doing this, definitely get a nice pair of headsets. This is where you're going to hear what we're talking about. Through the system and all, may be very difficult.
Yes. Before we do that, thank you all for coming for the digital music. And let's have a hand for Bill Harrison.